Hello, and welcome back to Fighting for the Truth. Here at Fighting for the Truth, we buy the truth and we sell it not. Today's show, we're going to be sitting around the Shreveport, Louisiana shooting that took place on April the 19th, last Sunday, at approximately 6 a.m. in Shreveport. If you're not familiar with this case, it is one that you should look into, but I'm not sure how you could have missed it because it is national news. A very sad tragedy that took place. And what you have here, a gentleman by the name of Shamar Elkins, who is no longer with us. He was killed, and that is still being determined whether he killed himself or whether law enforcement killed him. That is still under investigation. But on April the 19th, Mr. Elkins took the life of 7 of his children and also killed a 11-year-old cousin, and shot 2 women. One was his wife and girlfriend. Now, both females survived. They're both in the hospital, still recovering from their gunshot wounds. And let me be very clear that this weapon of choice that was used was an AR-15, from what I could see, assault rifle. Okay. And from the investigation, Mr. Elkins shot all 7 kids execution style and shot him in the head, which is a very tragic moment. You have to have a type of malice. Of course, the intent was there, but you have to be extremely upset. You have to be extremely, definitely to kill an innocent person, but innocent children at that. You have to be on another level with that. So we see that diving into his record, that he did suffer from some type of mental illness. He actually had checked himself into the hospital a couple weeks prior to the shooting, and it seems to me that he spent a week in the hospital dealing with his mental capacities. He was ultimately released. Not sure what led up to this shooting, ultimately tragic shooting, or execution, we should really call it. Not sure exactly what led up to that. As the days and weeks and months go by, hopefully we will learn more about what has taken place and why this has taken place. And some are saying that Mr. Elkins wanted his 2 baby moms, wife and girlfriend, to suffer through this loss as they recover, heal, and then find out that their children were all killed. It is a sad day, not only in Louisiana, but it's a sad day in America's history. I don't think there's been a case such as this. And what we can say is that mental illness is 100% real. It must be dealt with. But the biggest thing is, when you know that someone is suffering from a mental illness or episode, we need to, first of all, report it, but we also need to get them help. And if that means driving them to a facility, if that means having them checked into a facility, if that even means reaching out to your local leaders, pastors, and people in the psychology world to get them help. Okay. And this gentleman, Elkins, he served 7 years in the National Guard. So he was able, and he was under the care of the VA. So he did receive this treatment from the VA's hospital at the time he checked himself in for whatever reasons or conditions he was suffering from. He did do that. Now, again, more information will come out as to why he was released. And from my experience being a law enforcement officer, sometimes when you go into the mental hospitals to receive treatment, meaning the actual victim or patient, sometimes they're able to answer or check off boxes that will help them get released. Or if they tell the doctor the opposite of what's really going on, they move on to the next patient. Of course, it's all about getting them in and out, of course, getting them treatment, hopefully, but you'll find that they don't really have time to waste. So if let's say Mr. Elkins gave them all the right answers and maybe verbalized that he was feeling better and that he did not want to harm himself. He did not have any suicidal thoughts or harming others. They most likely released him. Now, I'm only saying this due to my training experience and past incidents that I've witnessed in my state when I'm actually transporting a person to outpatient treatment to speak with a doctor who can diagnose or help and prevent. So these are just my thoughts and my opinions from what I've seen over the years. Now, again, we're not sure exactly what led up to him being able to be released from the hospital at the time he had that happen. But there were 7 children on Sunday that was fatally shot, and some were actually asleep when this shooting took place. So they had no time to react, which they wouldn't have been able to do a whole lot. But you have to be in a different mindset, like I said, to take the life of any person. Anybody who commits murder intentionally with malice and hate, that's a special person who has no business being amongst society. And we already know what the end result of that looks like as it pertains to our Christian faith. You know, our Bible reads that they will not enter the kingdom of heaven, especially when you take the lives of innocent children who has not even lived out their full potential. Some of them were very young. As a matter of fact, if I can read the ages, they were from 3, 5, 6, 7, 10, and 11. Okay, so your youngest child was 3 years of age. The oldest was 11. Now, we want to go through this shooting and talk a little bit on what exactly happened if you hadn't had the opportunity to read or watch. So Shamar loses it that particular Sunday morning. Not sure what led up to him choosing this day. Maybe we can say that he just had enough and he understood that this day was going to be a moment when people were going to be not only home, it was a weekend and it was Sunday, but we all know that to be a religious day for the entire country and our nation. If you're Christian, you go to church on Sundays. I'm not sure what the Jewish do and the Catholics, but I would imagine Catholics attend some type of mass or service on Sundays. But Sundays is definitely set aside for the Christian faith to go to our respectful churches and go ahead and receive the blessings from the Lord, right? We start our day out that way and we end our week in that way to begin a new week. So Mr. Elkins chose this day for whatever reason he did, but at 6 a.m. was the time that the call, around 6 a.m. was the time that the call came into police that a woman had been shot. Okay, a woman had been shot in the face. And let's be clear, today that wound is still healing, and she was ultimately shot in the nose. Miss Snow was shot in the nasal area, and the bullet is still, from what I read earlier, still lodged in her nasal area. She has lost memory. She has issues remembering what took place, and some suggest, tongue twister there, that she is aware that her children was killed, and then at times she's unaware. She even made a statement that she needed to get out of the hospital, get up and go take her kids and get them dressed and take them to school. So she obviously is not aware that her children is no longer here on earth with us. Very tragic moment. But this gentleman, the suspect, goes to the house, shoots the girlfriend, then goes to his residence where his wife is with all 7 kids plus that cousin, and he goes in and shoots the wife, and then he executes 7 other children. Again, some are asleep. Is even has been stated and noted that a couple of the children tried to make it on top of the roof of the home to escape, to ultimately jump off the side of the house or the roof or the top of the house. They were able to recover a body on top of the roof that was one of the children who did not survive. Okay. Well, none of the children did, but made it to the top of the roof and was killed, which means Elkins chased his own child down and committed the most heinous crime that you can do, taking someone's life. And then he also shot the cousin. Matter of fact, if I'm stating all this right, he was able to escape on the roof as well, that 11-year-old boy, where he was found deceased. So it's a very tragic day in Louisiana, but it's also a tragic day in America. We have to talk about mental illness. It is one that is largely affecting the community, the nation, and the world. Understand and make sure you're clear, and make sure I'm clear about this, and make sure you're clear listening, that America is not the only country suffering mental illness. It is a thing that is widespread. It reaches the entire globe, okay? But I can't speak for other countries on what they're doing to combat mental illness, but here in America, we're trying to, and we're attempting to combat it, but we have to do even more. And that starts with not closing down the mental institutions, hospitals, places where treatment can take place. We have to reopen, and we have to build more. We're building jails. We're making those larger. We're expanding out for all the criminals that are going into the jail and to the criminal system. But we also have to look at the hospitalization of people who are in need of help as it pertains to their mental faculties. And in many communities, people hide behind that mask and they don't want to admit and come out. Really, no one wants to say that they have mental thoughts, or they have a mental disease, or they have thoughts of committing suicide, or they have thoughts of committing acts upon someone else, whether it be of a sexual nature or whether it be of a physical assault nature. No one really wants to expose those demons. But however, you have to speak to someone so that you can get the proper care, treatment, and love. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that I am going through an issue mentally, and I'm hearing voices in my head. I'm hearing one say commit suicide, other is saying go shoot up a store, whatever it may be. And these things we hold in, we don't tell anyone, we mask it, and we try, those who are dealing with this, you try to cope in society and live out your day and your moments, and realizing that there is an evil side that is coming out, and maybe due to no fault of your own. We're not judging, neither are we condoning, and neither are we saying that you are a bad person because you have thoughts of committing acts. No, we just need you to get help and speak to someone. But the first steps are to come out and openly admit that you're suffering from whatever you're suffering from. And friends and family, if you see this and you say nothing, you are just as guilty as the person who is going through this issue, because they are at a pivotal moment in their life, a very secluded moment, but also a private moment, but also a vulnerable moment. That is the real word I'm looking for. And they are in need of someone to grab hold of them, to say, you're coming with me. We're going to get you the help that you deserve and the help that you need. And I think if we begin to have these conversations, don't matter how old are you, no matter how old you are, okay? You can be a child, you can be a teenager, an adult, and you can be an elderly person who is suffering from mental illness, but you have to reach out and tell someone. And those who are aware, you have to go a step further and get help. You have to get them in treatment. You have to get them into a facility where they could receive the care that they need. And hopefully once they are under care, they can get all the treatments. They can come out and be a productive citizen. No, the answer is not locking them away and throwing away the key as it pertains to a mental institution where they are walking around taking all this medication and acting like zombies. That's not the answer, but the answer is an equal treatment, okay? Being diagnosed and understanding what the issues are, understanding what levels of a mental episode or disorder that they could be having, and to get them where they need to be so that they can come out again and be productive, and they can live out their life in peace and solidarity. And if they have a family, continue to thrive within their families and also cope within society. But what we see now, there is a disconnect, and what we're finding out in most of these shootings that are happening, and the suspect is no longer on earth or alive to face justice, we're finding out that they have these disorders. They're suffering from PTSD and they need help, and they ultimately kill themselves. And so there's no one to blame, neither are there many answers to uncover, because that person who did the crime is no longer alive. So how do we understand where they once were, where they were headed, and where they were in the middle, to put all the information together and find out why these tragic incidents are happening and did happen? And in this instance, as it pertains to Mr. Elkins, we most likely will not know his motive. We most likely will not know why he decided to do such. Okay. But we have to talk about these things in our home. I don't care if you are black, white, blue, green, or purple. It is something that you have to discuss. You have to openly have these discussions. I don't care if you're rich or if you're poor. Don't care if you are a celebrity or you're just an average common day person. It does not matter. Mental illness has no racial, no cultural, and no levels of wealth, okay, categories or levels. It attacks whom it needs and will, okay, from weak to strong. But in order to combat and to get better, you have to say something. And I think that's where we're going wrong. Matter of fact, I know that's where we're going wrong in America with a lot of these shootings. And then we have to address the other issue of guns. You know, everybody talks about, who are on the left, talks about banning guns. Taking guns are the solution to reduce gang violence, reduce mass shootings, reduce common violence that happens every day in communities. No, that's not the answer. The answer is making sure those who have weapons, firearms, are trained, but not only trained, that they are legally able to carry them. Because what we know, and I can tell you as being a law enforcement officer over 16 years now, a gun will not fire unless you pull the trigger. We also need to teach those who have guns to keep them locked away safely. Okay. If you have a family, and we want you to be able to protect your family, but if you have children in your home, your gun should not be loaded. Your ammunition should be stored separately from your gun. Your magazine should be stored separately. And in the event of emergency, you as a gun owner should know how to put that weapon back together and be able to use it in self-defense. But having a loaded gun around children where they can access it, it's a no-no. It's stupid. It is a no-brainer. It should not happen. So these are shootings that we could actually move away, and we could actually take out of our crime stats if we use these particular mechanisms that are gun safety tips 101, what I just told you. If you have common sense, you should be able to understand your gun should not be, again, loaded around children. And if you have no children in your home, that is another story. Or maybe you have children to visit your home sometimes. That's when you should have the sense to say, okay, let me either lock this gun away or disassemble it. Make sure it's not accessible for a child who has the capacity, who has the strength to put their hand in the trigger and pull it. Most times what happens when a child does that, they end up shooting themselves or another child, because all children are curious, and if they're in that home and they find a weapon, they're going to most likely mimic what they've seen on TV or in video games. They're going to point that weapon at that child, the other person or the other child, and it's going to go off. And that's what we see time and time and time and time and time again. And what do we always say when we see this? This could have been avoided. But I want to address the second issue of it. We all know, if you've, again, studied it or watched it or read it, that Mr. Elkins should have never even been in the possession of firearms. I believe he was a convicted felon, which makes him not able to not only possess, but to even be around firearms. Okay, that is a mechanism that's been put in place years and years ago for a convicted felon so that they cannot have access, because we know owning a gun is a privilege. The Second Amendment gives us the right to do that. But when you break laws that are so heinous that they have to take that right away from you, you're not eligible and neither are you able to be around and possess guns. So how did Mr. Elkins have access to a gun? Was the gun legal? And the answer is the gun was legal. It was somehow obtained from a gentleman by the name of Mr. Ford, a 56-year-old male. And right now that is still an investigation on what type of relationship these two had together. However, Mr. Elkins was able to get that weapon, okay? And Mr. Ford, from what we have uncovered, he lied to ATF, basically tried to hide the fact that he owned the weapon. Here goes the kicker. Mr. Ford should have also never had the weapon. He is a convicted felon, so he had no reason to even possess, okay, the assault rifle in the first place. How did Mr. Ford get the weapon? Well, it was given to him by a legal gun owner who had purchased that gun. And I don't know if the woman gave the gun to him as a gift, present, borrowed it, or maybe he took it. Don't know why Mr. Ford had that weapon. But ultimately, that gun exchanged hands on 3 occasions. It went from the original owner to Mr. Ford, and then it went to Elkins. And ultimately, Elkins used that weapon to commit a execution-style shooting. Now, once Mr. Elkins went from the girlfriend's house, took a couple of kids with him, and went over to his home where the wife was, once he committed that particular crime of murder, he fled and ended up carjacking an innocent civilian, took their car. And that's where police was able to catch up to him, had a high-speed chase, and it's still unclear if Elkins killed himself or if police killed him. But what we do know is that Mr. Elkins is dead. Okay. Again, there's no one to place the blame. There's no one to place the burden. There's no one to place the innocent lives that was taken. No one to prosecute. Might not even be enough information to find out exactly, again, why this shooting happened. So, what we need to do is take a step back, and we need to understand that yes, guns kill, but people kill. People with guns. I am a strong advocate for guns if you are legally able to purchase a gun, but you also need the training. I'm also an advocate for those who shouldn't possess guns, who are a danger to themselves or others, should not have a gun. I'm for that too. Again, banning guns, telling us that we can't have guns is not the solution. We see how that plays out in a socialist society. We see how that plays out when it's compared to Cuba. And I talked about this. Places like Venezuela, places like Haiti, anywhere where the government says you can't have weapons, they can ultimately control you because they're afraid of a armed militia. They're afraid of the community, the villages taken over by the means of using firearms to overtake the government if that government is wreaking havoc or holding them down in a dictatorship society like Cuba and places that I mentioned earlier. That is why we see the advocacy of making sure guns are not allowed by everyday citizens. And that is ultimately what America wants to do as it comes to the left. They really want to take away our weapons. They want to trample on the Constitution, the Second Amendment within our Bill of Rights so that they could have ultimate control. And once they do that, there will be no overtaking of the government. And what we're going to do is show up with bats and rams, which in slingshots, yeah, that could work, and bow and arrows. But we know that guns are designed and was produced and was created to fight off the enemy from a short distance or from a long distance. So That's the quickest and easiest way to take over and manhandle and control a society, disarm them with taking away their firearms. That's how you do that. So we don't want a country that looks like that. Okay. We don't want a country that looks like Australia. Okay. Where there is no one to fight off a terrorist or a domestic terrorist from a foreign terrorist to a local who is committing a robbery or whatever that crime may be with a weapon, a knife per se. That saying is true. You never bring a knife to a gunfight. Guns are designed for many different reasons. It was never designed to commit crimes on innocent people. Guns were used and still is today in a hunting hobby, in a hunting profession, to find and capture prey animals so that humans could live by being able to use and eat those weapons. Those animals. That's what the firearm was originally used for. And of course, it carried on into the military and to, the world of policing. And then, of course, for you to protect your home and yourself when you're out and about, if you were to ever encounter an issue. But we've taken this gun rights to a whole nother level. And I could talk about that all day. But I wanted to make sure that you are aware of what took place in Shreveport, Louisiana. It is, again, a very somber moment in history, and it will continue to be. And, of course, at some point, we will be, the people of Shreveport, they'll begin to heal and they'll move on and hopefully never forget about what took place. But it's also new that it's going to be a lot of healing that will need to take place. And, again, innocent children lost their lives at the hands of not a stranger, excuse me, not at the hands of a stranger, not at the hands of a terrorist, not at the hands of a friend, but at the hands of a father, the person who helped bring them into the world. A man who was supposed to protect them. And according to what I read, he was a loving father. He always spent time with his kids. So again, disconnect has taken place, a drastic disconnect. But a man who was supposed to protect them. A man who was not only supposed to protect them, but a man who was supposed to nurture and guide them within the rights of being a father, to show his sons the path that they should be to become a great person, a great child, to a teenager, to ultimately becoming a man, and to helping them become a productive citizen in the world and in the country. And then those daughters, to nurture them, show them what a father looks like, show them the way a woman should be treated. None of those things a father should do as it pertains to assaulting, whether that be physically and sexually, to abusing, and ultimately killing. That's something a father shouldn't do, a parent shouldn't do, an adult shouldn't do, let alone a father. They looked to him, they looked up to him, and they looked to him to be the protector, that father figure. Never in a million years, I bet you, if these kids would have had the opportunity to grow up and become great citizens, and father sat down and talked to them and told them, I thought about killing y'all or you all. Never in a million years would they be able to even imagine, accept it, or stomach it, or even have realized that this was on his mind, his heart to do. No child would ever think that. No person would ever think that. But this is what has happened. And it's a sad day, and we have to do something about it. We can't just sit back and say, well, that's another shooting that took place. Not my family, not my friends. We have to do something about it. I'm doing something about it by using my platform, using this show to talk to you about mental illness and how we need to, again, when we see the signs, report help and allow that person to get the treatment and the help they need, and then love them in the particular situation and state they're in. Don't abandon and don't what we call blame, judge, but show them that you love them and show them that you care. And we can prevent incidents like this from happening again. But I do want to say this too. The only way that our country will heal and get better and to look at the world through a lens of love, of not only loving oneself, but neighbor, as the Bible says. But the only way our country will heal and become a great nation, if we have to first, and we say all the time, we have to put God back at the center of everything that we do. We have to remember that our country was built on in God we trust. And so the world is pushing God out. Country is also doing the same. Many are hoping that we're not able to bounce back. Many want to see the demise of this country fall completely. Many want to see the Christian faith, Christianity, dissolved. But we cannot let our bad actors reduce us and to take away our faith, our religion, and the most truthful words that was placed in the Bible, things that our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ did back during his time. They want to destroy the Bible. And until we can pick the Bible back up, and until we can pick ourselves back up, and until we stand up and say, this is enough, I am not going to let it happen. We're going to continue to fall further and further backwards, and we will continue to see the uprise of shootings that are taking place nationally. What we do know, it ain't the first. It isn't the first, and it won't be the last. And it's never if, it is always when another situation like this happens. But I gave you some advice on how we could help combat what is going on in the country. And I hope that we all take heed to it, including myself. And one thing I do know, that we all fall, but we're able to get back up again and try again. And if the Lord forgives us, man has no other reason but to do the same. And if they're not willing to forgive you, move on, because there's something better, greater in store for you. But I do want to share this with you. Do you see this hat that I'm wearing? It's from the Heartbeat brand collection. Now, the Heartbeat brand, they are building a community united by shared interests and passions. They want to offer you meaningful logo wear that will inspire every individual to live out their passions, okay? To inspire them to do what? Follow their dreams, and then ultimately express what makes their heartbeat, your heartbeat. Now, you can also take part in this. And how can you take part in this? Well, I'm going to make sure that you are aware of why you should be able to take part in this, because these are the reasons. Here, these are premium hats, okay? And you want to take part in by checking out the website, seeing what they have in store for you. Look at all the 5-star reviews. And then you go up there and you'll find out that, listen, browsing on this website is free. Who would have ever imagined that I could browse on the website for free? But we don't want you to stay there. What we want you to do is pick out a hat from the Heartbeat brand collection, and once or multiple hats. Keep in mind, there's not only hats, there are beanies, there are all types of apparel that you can have, use, and take with you. And you can do this, and once you do that, you're ready to check out, you can use a special promo code, and this is what you need to do to get 25% off, okay? You need to put into the promo code section in all caps. This is what you need to do. You need to put in Fighting for the Truth Show. I repeat that, Fighting for the Truth Show, and you'll get 25% off on your next order. So please do that. The Heartbeat brand, they are doing great things. I'm glad to be partnering with them to bring this to life for you. And I promise you, once you get your hat, your beanie, shirt, whatever you get, and you wear it, you'll see why it makes hearts beat. I need you to do me a favor. I'm getting ready to leave. I need you to do me a favor. Oh, by the way, I didn't let you know that, as you can see, we're still not in the almost at the Heartbeat Brand Studio. We're not in the Fighting for the Truth studio. I am still on the road. And so we will be heading back. And so we'll be back in the Fighting for the Truth studio, where you'll see the flag. You'll see my former agency where I worked. I'm in uniform, in a police uniform, and a portrait behind, or a photo. And so you see that I'm not in that particular setting. I'm in a hotel setting. Either way, we want to bring this show to you. But I need you to do me a favor. Would you please do me a favor? Would you please do me a favor? Would you please do me a favor? Buy the truth and sell it not. Remember, you cannot sell the truth. You got to give it away. And why do we give it away? Because it's the truth. And when you know the truth will set you free. It has no other choice but to set you free. So until we meet again, until we do this again, God, please continue to bless our great country. Bless the men and women that are serving in our armed forces. And Lord, please continue to bless the men and women that are serving in blue. And that is our police officers. Be better, be great. Until we meet again next time, I'll see you. Take care.